Hey, it's Don, the Auction Professor. Today I wanted to talk about something that brings me right back to my childhood. In 1977, I believe June, Star Wars came out and forever changed my childhood. Just a drastic amount of toys and stuff. I couldn't go anywhere, even to my local convenience store, without finding something. And that started me collecting what we're going to talk about today, which is trade cards, non-sports trade cards. Let's hop over the screen and show you some of the examples of what we are talking about. Now, back in 77 June, I know I was just out of school at the time. It was summer break. Just got to see the movie, and probably 2 or 3 days later, I was at the local convenience store and I ran into some Star Wars cards. It was the original Blue Series, for those of you who know the Star Wars universe and the toys that came out. One of the most interesting things that I had found as a child. Bought many of them. I collected them for years. I branched out into all the other aspects, including collecting vintage ones from, say, the 50s and before. Now, non-sports cards have gone up immensely. One area is grading them, just like you would like a PSA for sports cards. They grade them for Star Wars cards and any of the non-sports genre cards in general. This is an area that I share love of, as well as Dom Primetime Treasure Hunter. I've even shared pictures of some of the ones that I've scored recently for some of the vintage card stock. Now, here is a holy grail. This is an entire case of the 5th series. And when they released the cards, there were multiple different series. The first one was blue. That's one of the most desirable cards. We'll show you some more as well. This case went for $32,000. This is something that still does show up occasionally. So do boxes, wax packs, and trading cards in various conditions. I buy and sell every kind of imaginable non-sport trading card you could think of. I've collected non-sports cards since I was a small child. I still pick them up when I see them, so I've got more than 40 years in purchasing this sorts of things. This is one area that I've always loved. I've even created some of my own ACEO cards with my own artwork, or some takeoffs on someone else's artwork. So this is a good area that there's a lot of money potential if you know what you're looking for. Again, $32,000 on this one. Now, this next one is an entire box from each one of the 5 series card sets. So it's got the blue, the red, the yellow, the green, and the orange. So every colored version set that they released in sequential order, 1st series through 5th series, is included in this lot. $9,990, almost $10,000. These do still show up. I still have some of mine from when I was a child. I saved all the wrappers, which most people do. Every aspect of this is worth money. An empty box, an empty wrapper, the loose cards, it all carries a value to a collector. And again, I have been a collector in this field for over 40 years, so I do love the card sets themselves. Now, this one will have a slip on the back. It states what it is, what's in it, the whole works, condition, and all of that. Really interesting. $9,500. Price-wise goes all over the gambit. These have shot up immensely when you have them graded, and they're graded high. This is a Gem Mint 10, the best condition you could possibly find on this card. When I was a child, I would no way in the world think these would go for this kind of money. $7,300, over $7,300, 65 bids. Really excellent example. Insane price, of course. These are speculators and people investing, expecting to get a big return on their investment. I don't know if we're there yet in my book, but I do occasionally send off these sorts of things in big bulk lump sums into the grading companies that we use. So just FYI, there are some money to be had in some of these. Now, when I was a child, I collected all of these, including the 1959 Fleer Three Stooges. Now, this is the original with Curly. This is the best set you could possibly imagine. Single cards and NM7, mind you. This is a lower grade than the one we looked at 10. Still went for over $6,000. Population's pretty low on things like this, in my opinion, if you look into these. It's really a nice example. I've sold tons of these cards from this series. They were mass-produced. It's not a scarcity, so to speak, but in certain conditions, they're really hard and tough to get, especially usually the #1 card of any set, like the Star Wars Blue Luke we just showed you. That was card #1. That's usually one of the toughest cards to get in good condition, because it usually sat on the top of the stack, and if it took any brunts or abuse or anything, it was usually that card or the very bottom checklist card. So those are usually the top 2 of any set that you would want. So anyway, this is just a really nice one here. A sealed box from Series 1, the Blue Series. Same company, so it has the cert basically on the back, sealed inside the plastic with their logoed plastic as well. $4,750. 10, 15 years ago, you would have never seen any of these sorts of things slabbed like this or graded. I just never saw it back in the day. It's a big thing nowadays, but 15, 20 years ago, there was nothing like this, so to speak, for anything other than maybe comic books. Nice one, single card. Some of these are very, very scarce. Some of them, in certain aspects, glossy or flat can mean a big, huge difference. There are variations in some of these, so just keep that in mind. This is a PSA 10 Gem Mint, the highest grade you can get. That's why the value at $4,300. I've held on to a lot of these. We are sending some off right now, so this is an area I do play in, and I do play in this heavily certain times of the year. Christmas is one of the best times. Civil War News. This is a well-collected set. They were available in rack packs, which they actually have in here. They also had included some of them with bills, reproduction facsimile Confederate bills of the time, currency. $3,995, almost $4,000 for this. Just a real nice example. The rack hanger itself goes for hundreds, so there's some good value in individual items in this lot. Now going back to individual cards, here's another 10 grade, $3,550 for this random card out of the assortment of 66 for the green series. I'm shocked sometimes when I see these sorts of things that I grew up on and had hundreds of them throughout my time. All kinds of different card sets were produced. McHale's Navy, test sets like Gilligan's Island, Bionic Man, The Black Hole, every movie or anything that came out, Davy Crockett TV series, Zorro cards, rock and roll stars with Elvis and Buddy Holly and Fats Domino, Chuck Berry, all of those have cards, trading cards, starting in the 50s and on up. Before that, there was Tom Mix. You can go back and see Laurel and Hardy cards. You can go farther back and see Charlie Chaplin and such forth. You can find stage actress cards going back into the 1870s and 80s even. So across the gamut, there are pioneer versions, which would be the Victorian era ones, and then we move up into the more modern day age. These cards go across the gamut. If it's not sports related, it is considered non-sports trading cards, and they're covered in book after book after book. Every country had these in many aspects. Real good area to be playing in if you know what you're looking for. Planet of the Apes. This is from the 1975 series. There were multiple series from this. Now these were for the TV series as well as some from the movie, so you've got to really know which version you are talking about based on the characters on the cards. We've sold thousands from these sets, including multiple complete sets. They're still out there. They still show up. I find them all over the place. Now, this is one of the tough ones to get. This is from the 1967 Leaf Star Trek set. These are mostly, I think, available only in England. They're a different size than the majority of the other cards. I've only had handfuls of these at any one given time. They're extremely scarce. This one is a card 6. It's a 9, which is fairly high. $3,474. These are really nice cards. If you haven't seen them, they're really interesting. They're black and white as well. Now here we go back even farther, 1939 War News. This is from World War II. A lot of these earlier card sets had hundreds of cards. They dropped them down as time went by. Modern day series have like 66 on average, depending on who's making them and what's on the card. So $3,200, all ungraded, just regular cards that someone would have picked up somewhere. Now, a very famous set is the Mars Attacks series from 1962 from Topps. They made the movie of it, as we all know. Now, these are one that I usually would slab myself as well, if they're in good enough condition. I don't usually slab certain cards if they're less than, say, a 7 grade. These are on a scale of 1 through 10. So just keep that in mind. Nice example, $3,000 for a very graphically appealing card. No fade, nothing. It just looks excellent to me. Now here's a lot of wax wrappers. These are wax packs. The cards are in wax sealed wrappers. So they would use the wax and the wax would be heated up, and that's how they would seal the cards in these packs. It would have food in there, so they had to be safe and impenetrable to moisture and things like that. So the gum inside wasn't contaminated. Really interesting lot. Most of the time, if you see 5 cents on the price, those are usually worth more. When I was a child in the 70s, they actually hand labeled them with the sticker guns back in the day, usually, if I remember right. Just a large lot of them. Treasure Island are fairly decent cards. Spins and Needles is one that did the rock and roll stars of the day, pop artists and things. Nice assortment, in all honesty. Just a real nice pack. Now, this is a cello pack. Sometimes back then they also had clear packs that you would get. They still do that occasionally for promotional sets these days. $3,000 for 6 sealed packs, wax packs. Now, this series I collected myself. I had multiples that I actually bought at the store still in leftover rack packs and things like that. This is the 1976 top series from Star Trek. This is from the TV series. Star Trek the Motion Picture had not come out yet and wouldn't come out for a couple more years. So, nice example here, $2,749. PSA 9, very high grade. Now here we have a whole box with the packs in it as well. Nice example. I remember this very, very well. Used to remember taking all my pocket change down to buy more packs of these. This is what was available in the store locally at the end of my street. So $2,500 on this. Now here's some Hopalong Cassidy. Just like nowadays, they do foil and all kinds of custom inserts for these. So there are some foil cards as well as solid blue, cartoon colored versions of them as well, like you'd see in the printed comic books. This one went for $2,417 US. This is from Canada, this one I do believe. Nice example of these sorts of things. Now this one's from the Horrors of War. This is a wrapper from it. That set has hundreds of cards. It's worth a lot of money, thousands of dollars for an excellent one. The wrapper on this went for $2,265 US, again, another Canadian version. Now this is one of those that you just see a picture in a book. This is one of the first ones of these I've seen sell. Now here's a modern day 1973 Wacky Packs. Now this is on the verge of the era that I would have found in stores by my house still. Now these would have floated around even if they may have been sold originally in 73, 74, 75. Throughout that time frame, there might have been warehouses. They could have sat in stores for a long time. When I was a child, this stuff just didn't rotate very much. So you'd find multiple different series. Until they sold out, they'd sit on a shelf. And if it wasn't popular, they sat. So I always enjoyed finding these sorts of things. It's a 9 mint. This one went for $2,250. The prices here on these, I'm telling you, if you find big assortments all the way across the board, these are always good to get. Here's a nice lot of some of these, 461 cards. Nice assortment of cards. I looked through these because I remember some of these when I was a child. So $2,195. Now here's another fad that was huge in the early 90s, were these hologram inserts. One of the first ones was the Looney Tunes series with the comic ball sets that came out, and they had holograms of baseball players. Reggie Jackson, I believe, was in there. Maybe Nolan Ryan or someone along that line. The Marvel series issued these as well, and they were very scarce. This is one area that I've got hundreds of these sorts of things in my assorted collection. Back in 1990, when these first came out, I bought these heavily back then, and I still have those original ones in very fine condition. We're getting ready to send some off, as I said. This set has skyrocketed recently. Wolverine is one of the hottest cards in that set, so one of the ones I always look for is any of these. This is the first Marvel Universe series, and they've come on to do at least 3 that I've collected. After that, there could be more, but I know there's series 1, 2, and 3, and there's holograms in each one of those. Advanced Comics even has some promo holograms for some of the later ones, like the Venom hologram promo that's pretty well known. Now, there's 5 cards to this set here, this insert set, and they were randomly inserted into packs. So not every pack had these in it. This is a really nice series here. I've kept these since 90 when these first came out. Wife and I both bought them together when we were just dating. So really interesting things. Yes, I'm a comic book sci-fi nerd as well, so I love this sort of thing. I'm really intrigued when I find these out in the wild. Still to this day, people thinking they don't carry money. So we just picked up a huge assortment of these off of Craigslist just the other day, mind you. So $2,000 basically on this one. These aren't crazy insane prices anymore. They used to be, but not anymore. This has moved mainstream, and now these are hotly sought after by those who are just getting into the movies now, looking back at when they were younger. So here's some Swedish cards here. They make them across the gambit. Disney cards in general, Smurf sets in general go for some good money. It's a foreign invention to begin with, some of these, so that's why it doesn't matter where they're coming from. This is from the 50s to the 70s. It's a random huge assortment of Swedish cards. $2,000. Now here's a wax pack from the 1959 Fleer Three Stooges. You can see Curly on it himself. Excellent example. I have run into these occasionally. I have to pay up hundreds and hundreds of dollars for things like this, but they do still show up. If you know what you're doing, know how to tell the difference between the old stuff, the new stuff, which version you were looking at, there's some good money to be made in this sort of thing. Now speaking of that, you see here is another set. Now this has Curly Joe, or Joe Besser, I believe, is the Curly replacement. Curly had passed away, or I think he had a stroke at this time, and he wasn't part of the Three Stooges. There's been multiple versions of the Three Stooges. Shemp was originally one of the Three Stooges. He didn't go along with it once they hit the movies, and then he came back into them later on. This sort of thing is still out there. They show up at auctions. You're going to go to a higher end auction. You're going to have to shell out for it. There still is money to be made, though, in all of these sorts of things. Other people might send this off to PSA and then grade it and then double their value on these. It's an investment sometimes, so you're going to have to shell out. You're not going to find this sort of thing all the time out in the wild for nothing, but I do find individual cards and sets all the time if you know where to look for them at. So anyway, nice example. Now the next one here are the Kiss series. There was two series, Series 1, Series 2. I remember seeing these. I remember buying these as well. My parents didn't allow me to listen to Kiss at the house. But while I was out, I listened to Kiss quite often with my friends. So when I did have the cards, and I did enjoy buying these and rushing down with my allowance to spend it all on cards and things like this. So anyway, just a fine area to invest in. I've made a ton of money buying and selling this sort of thing, even at higher dollar value auctions and things along that line. But that's what I have for you today. Well, there we are. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, please hit that like button down below. You can also hit the bell icon to be notified if I post new content or go live. Subscribe and tell a friend.